The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by CPS America, the maker of North America's #1 three-phase string inverter, with over 6 gigawatts shipped in the U.S. The CPS America product lineup includes three-phase string inverters ranging from 25 to 275 kW. Their flagship inverter, the CPS 250-275, is designed to work with solar plants ranging from 2 megawatts to 2 gigawatts. The 250-275 pairs well with CPS America's exceptional data communication, controls, and energy storage solutions. Go to chintpowersystems.com to find out more.
So we're currently on 7 sites. We have 17 robots operating across 7 sites.
Okay.
Several of them are 500 to 750 plus acres. We're going to be doing a lot more robots next year. So if you are a solar asset owner or an O&M company or a vegetation maintenance company or a solar grazer that's looking to supplement with some vegetation, traditional cutting, then reach out to us. We're happy to give you a quote.
Are you speeding the energy transition? Here at the Clean Power Hour, our hosts Tim Montague and John Weaver bring you the best in solar, batteries, and clean technologies every week. Want to go deeper into decarbonization? We do too. We're here to help you understand and command the commercial, residential, and utility solar, wind, and storage industries. So let's get to it. Together we can speed the energy transition.
We're here at the Solar Farm Summit. I'm Tim Montague. Welcome to the Clean Power Hour. My guest today is Tim Lichti. He is the founder and CEO of Swap Robotics, a company that is tackling vegetation management on solar farms. Check out all of our content at cleanpowerhour.com. Please give us a rating and a review and connect with me on LinkedIn. I love to connect with my listeners and hear your suggestions. So, Tim, welcome to the Clean Power Hour.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I always listen to your podcast while doing the dishes I mentioned to you before, so this is fun to meet you in person.
I love that about podcasting, right?
Yeah.
It's opened up a whole realm of content that before we just never would have been exposed to.
Yeah.
I listen to pods when I'm exercising, walking, driving, of course, and doing the dishes or other chores. So it's a great way to fill the space and educate yourself.
Yeah.
I ran into you first very briefly at ACP a few years ago. I was bummed that we didn't get to talk more at that event, but here we are at the Solar Farm Summit in 2024 in Chicago. Glad to see you here.
Yeah.
But as I was saying in the pre-show, Mowing and Agrivoltaics, I wasn't sure that was a good pairing. So tell us about Swap. What are you up to? What is the status of the company, and why the Agrivoltaics conference?
Yeah, absolutely. So Swap Robotics, a little bit about us. We're just under 5 years old as a company. We actually started in snow, but so we pivoted into cutting the grass on these 500 plus acre solar fields. We kept on getting requests for it, and we're kind of like, why is this not a solved problem? And when we looked into it more, we figured out there's just so many unique challenges to cutting the grass in solar fields and vegetation. You need to be having a really thick kind of bush hog, like 50-pound plus blades, to be able to cut through that really thick, nasty vegetation. You need to be getting all the way underneath those solar panels. So we developed the world's first and only offsettable cutting deck that can go 6 feet to the left to get underneath there. You might have, some of these sites, you might have 100,000 I-beams that you need to trim around every one of those I-beams. And the trimming of the I-beams can take as much labor as the cutting itself. So we have a trimming attachment that's available for that as well. And then you have a ton of safety features. So you need to be aware of where solar panels are. You need to have safety things like 6 emergency, mechanical emergency stop buttons, sensing edges for safety sense, and all these kind of other safety elements to it as well. So we developed our solution just for cutting the vegetation on solar fields. That has been our focus to date. We see agrivoltaics as a really interesting opportunity long-term, and probably in 10, 15 years where the industry is going to be. So what we discovered as we got into this industry was that actually managing the vegetation after these sites are built is the single biggest line item expense. So on some of these 2,000-3,000 acre sites, sometimes they're spending over $1 million a year just to manage the vegetation. That's a huge expense.
It's real money.
It's real money for sure. So that's historically been done almost all using people on riding mowers and skid steers. We thought that that's a great opportunity for disruption. We can do it more reliably, more clean, in a clean fashion because our robots are 100% electric, and we can do it more affordably for groups, ultimately bring down the cost of clean energy as well. We think that sheep can be interesting as part of the solution long term. You can start to take what has historically been the vegetation, which is a big line item expense, and over time transforming that into some revenue as well. Now, of course, there's a lot of expenses for sheep. The costs are coming down for sheep for sure, but there was that Wood Mackenzie study that was done a year ago that we're still finding that sheep is more expensive on large scale farms than regular equipment. I think that's going to come down over time. But I think that's what's really exciting is that on that tenure perspective, there's an opportunity for sheep and robots to actually work together. And so what I mean by that is that sheep might be maintaining half the site, robots maintaining the other half or some of it through there. And then one thing that we're happy to announce at this conference is that we are now working on an attachment for our robots. So it's not only cutting the grass and vegetation, but we'll be able to use robots to actually rake that vegetation and then be able to turn that into hay long term. If that hay can then, those bales of hay can be kept on the solar site, you can then have your sheep that can be basically, if there's drought or over winters, they can be using that forage without having overgrazing concerns. So that's why we're here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this robot. It sounds like you've custom built at least many of the parts. Is the entire thing a custom build, or tell us about that?
For sure. So individual components like, say, gearboxes, motors, motor controllers, we use as much off the shelf as possible. That's so that we can scale up quickly because we don't want to reinvent the wheel. In terms of the form factor itself, though, we've developed that ourselves. We actually didn't even want to. Or first, we wanted to use something that was out of the box because robots are really hard, they're expensive. There was just nothing that actually matched our need for having something that's really compact, yet also really powerful. So I mentioned how we started in sidewalk snow plowing. In that, we needed to be fit on 5.5 foot sidewalks, and we also need to be pushing snow 500 plus pounds for 16-hour shifts. So we needed to have that really powerful yet compact form factor. Nothing existed on the market. We looked for it, so that's why we built it out. Now, it just so happened that we just got lucky that that compact yet powerful form factor works perfect when you're in solar sites where you might have 16 to 20 feet between the I-beams, and even less once you account for those panels.
Sure.
Yeah.
And you mentioned being able to mow underneath and get to the I-beams.
Yeah.
You're reaching in, 4 feet basically, right, from the edge of the panel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so is that a special attachment, or the mower is going underneath, or how does that work?
Yeah, so that's a special attachment, and that's something that we developed in-house.
Okay.
We have a couple patents filed already. We have probably 6 more patents that are kind of in the works as well.
Yeah.
And that was one of those challenges. This is, you cannot be asking the solar asset owner to change the angling of their panels throughout the day just so you can cut the vegetation. Just not an option.
Right.
So we realized we needed to work around that. So our cutting deck at its highest point is less than 18 inches high, so it can get all the way underneath those panels. We've developed not only the world's first, and at least, July 2024, at this time, the world's only 100% electric rough cut deck that can cut through thick vegetation, but it's the world's first and currently only 100% electric offsettable cutting deck. So our cutting deck can actually offset up to 6 feet to get all the way underneath those panels, and that trimmer attachment can now be trimming those I-beams as well.
Yeah. And the system is a pure electric, call it a tractor or a mower.
Yeah.
And I noticed in the video that your battery is a swappable battery,
yes,
which I like.
Yeah.
It gives you some flexibility there, but tell us about a typical installation.
Yeah.
And how does charging infrastructure come in?
Yeah, for sure.
How does that weigh in, so to speak?
For sure. So installation is surprisingly easy. There's just 2 things that we would do on a typical installation. The first thing is a one-time mapping of the site. One person can map about 40 to 60 acres per day. That's just doing it once, and then we have that forever. We include that as part of the cost per acre for our robotics as a service. So we charge on a cost per acre.
Yeah.
That's the one thing. The charging infrastructure is pretty easy. The batteries are they kind of plug into a wall outlet, 110, 120 volt, 15 amp draw. We use a bunch of them, but typically that's able to be just take the power off of either the O&M building or the electrical that's close by there. Usually only takes from a few days to a few weeks to get that done, and then you're off to the races. We're ready to go. And in the meantime, we can even be cutting before that setup as well.
But so is a robot dedicated to a site? These are sites, obviously, they're quite large.
Yeah.
And so, it's running through and mowing, but then it's starting again. Or is it going to a container between mowings? Is it?
Yeah.
And then it has fast charging come up. Is there a need for that, or?
Yeah, for sure. So it's something we talk about a lot, actually, internally. So right now, we typically follow what we call the Golden Gate Bridge model. The painters on the Golden Gate Bridge is so big when they start at one end and get to the other end, they go right back to the start. So we like to do some, envelope math to say, okay, how big of this site, how often do they need to cut, and thus how many robots do we need on that site to be dedicated? Now, it's not to say we can't do smaller sites. We can. And because these sites are typically kind of clustered together, there's that natural clustering effect. So we could do, have some robots do a few sites and moving around if needed. But we prefer to do that, kind of keep them on one site, and they just do it the whole season. In terms of the charging, I mentioned about the world's first and currently only 100% electrical rough cut blades. Well, those are 50-pound blades. So it uses a lot of energy to be able to cut through all that mass and that vegetation. That's why we do those swappable batteries. We can do a battery swap in 5 minutes. We do it ourselves as part of that cost per acre. We also do all the repairs and maintenance. So to the customer, whether it's a solar asset owner, whether it's an O&M, or whether it is a vegetation management company, they just know that they're getting the job done. That's the most important thing. In terms of what we're thinking long-term, we don't think that taking it to a charging station is probably going to make sense because the amount of energy you need, you're talking probably level 2 or even level 3 charging that's needed.
Right.
And we just don't think it makes sense to be setting up that kind of infrastructure in these rural areas where, frankly, that's the only thing it's going to be used for. We are considering, probably shouldn't go into too much, but considering some automated battery swaps, which you might see in a year or two. But the number still pencils out really nicely, even just doing those manual battery swaps right now.
I mean, NIO has become famous for swappable batteries in a consumer EV, right, in China.
For sure.
I saw one in Norway when I was there recently.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
So they're coming into Northern Europe as well. They're not in the U.S. market much yet, but I know, eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so what is the range of the vehicle? You measure that in hours or miles, or how do you measure the range?
Yeah, so it's kind of the engineer's answer is that it depends. Almost all that energy is coming from those blades spinning, the energy output.
Yeah.
So it depends how thick the vegetation is, depends how fast you're running it through vegetation. Currently, you're seeing about 5 to 10 hours per charge. But we're trying to run the robots as close to 24/7 as possible. So a typical robot will have a couple sets of batteries so that whilst one is discharging, the other can recharge. And then because those battery swaps just take 5 minutes, we want to run them as close to 24/7 as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what else I should ask, but I mean, it sounds like you've got some early adopters.
Yeah.
Can you speak about the scale of the operation so far?
And for sure.
And what is it that you're looking for in terms of customers?
For sure. So we're currently on 7 sites. We have 17 robots operating across 7 sites.
Okay.
Several of them are 500 to 750 plus acres. We're going to be doing a lot more robots next year. So if you are a solar asset owner or an O&M company or a vegetation maintenance company or a solar grazer that's looking to supplement with some vegetation, traditional cutting, then reach out to us. We're happy to give you a quote. And then also we actually are just in the middle of a fundraising round now as well. So there's room for follow-on investors. We have the lead investor always ready, but room for follow-on investment as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, like, in terms of the adoption, obviously sheep grazing, solar grazing is really taking off now. J.R. Howard, who you introduced me to, and said that Enel has a 2 gigawatt solar grazing program in Texas now, and that's a lot of acreage.
Yeah.
But what is the response that you're getting from developers and asset owners? Because it's clear that a hybrid approach is going to be necessary. J.R. fully admits, I mean, he's a sheep grazer, but he admits that he also has to do mowing.
Yeah.
And there's just no way around that.
Yeah.
And I don't know all those details per se, but what is the response you're getting, and I guess are there things that have to change in order to achieve wider adoption?
So I think right now all of our customers love it and are looking to do additional sites for next year. So I think there's a lot of satisfaction there. We've taken a really intentional approach, not just to take on as much work as we can, but to make sure that every customer we're serving, they're going to be really happy with it and have a good experience.
Yeah.
I think that's really important to do that, making sure that there's good customer support for these robots. And then in terms of the wider trend, as utility scale solar in America starts taking up over time, millions of acres of land, it is a reasonable thing to say, how are we making sure we're not taking away farmland? And that's where I see longer term that raking attachment, that ability to basically make hay out of using the robots as something that's really special. I don't think that folks are we've had 20 years to get really efficient and really good at making the current single axis tracker setup for utility scale. I don't think that the way we do that should change. I think the equipment should enable hay making to work within those bounds. And that's why we've already been working on that form factor. We have, I'm Canadian, so over 12,000 kilometers, over 8,000 miles of autonomous operation just in the last year alone. So we have a lot more experience than anyone else working within these solar panels, and I think we're the ones to bring that into scale as well.
And the business model is robotics as a service, or are the companies buying the robots?
Robotics as a service, but the way we describe it is just a cost per acre per cut, which is how folks are used to seeing it already. So it's a really easy thing to say yes to.
And these sites that you're working today, geographically, approximately, where are we talking?
Yeah, so we have a few in Texas. We've got some in North Carolina, some in Georgia. We've worked in Florida. Next year in 2025, we're going to be working a lot in the Midwest as well. So wherever solar is really being built out, we want to be there in USA.
Yeah. And is there an average that you see? How many times does a site need to be mowed in a season?
It really totally depends on the environment. The biggest determinant of that is just how many inches of rainfall you get. That's going to determine how often you need to cut. In an area like West Texas, you might only need a couple cuts a year. More Central Texas and the Texas Triangle, 3 to 5 times, even 6 if it's a wet rain, like JR said beforehand.
Right.
Getting into North Carolina and Georgia, 4 or 5 cuts a year. Getting to Florida, you might be doing 8, 10, even 12 cuts a year just because they get a lot of rain there, and it's some areas you're having to cut the entire year as well.
Makes sense. Is there anything else our listeners should know about Swap Robotics?
No, I think just reach out to us, sales at Swap Robotics, if you're interested in getting a quote and learning more.
Cool. Well, thank you, Tim Lichti.
Awesome.
With Swap Robotics, I'm Tim Montague. Check out all of our content at cleanpowerhour.com. Please give us a rating and a review on Apple or Spotify. Tell your friends about the show and reach out to me on LinkedIn. I love hearing from my listeners on LinkedIn. With that, I'll say, let's grow solar grazing. Take care.
The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by CPS America, the maker of North America's #1 3-phase string inverter, with over 6 gigawatts shipped in the U.S. The CPS America product lineup includes 3-phase string inverters ranging from 25 to 275 kW. Their flagship inverter, the CPS 250-275, is designed to work with solar plants ranging from 2 megawatts to 2 gigawatts. The 250-275 pairs well with CPS America's exceptional data communication, controls, and energy storage solutions. Go to chintpowersystems.com to find out more.